Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Monday morning meditation. Happy December. And we are getting started today on our 7 steps for releasing the year, part of our um, end of the year process that we do every year. We've done this for many years now on our Monday morning meditations. And we are actually piggybacking off of the 7 Steps for Releasing the Year series with Jane Hart and Center for Enlightenment. And if you would like to join the Sunday classes every week during this process to go a little deeper, we don't have a lot of time on Monday morning meditations, but on Sundays, we are kind of diving into some of Jane's videos on the 7 step process and releasing the year. And she goes deep, just to warn you. She goes very deep with those. And you can sign up for their email list to get notified. Find them on YouTube, Center for Enlightenment. It's a wonderful process that I can't say I look forward to it every year, but I do participate every year. It's not always easy releasing things. So yeah, so we are going to do the 7 steps in 5 weeks. So we're going to double up on some of the steps that we'll get to, but we are starting on the disappointments and difficulty steps. And if you have known me for any period of time, you know that the 7 steps is something that I use personally. The first time I used it was right before I got married 30 something years ago, 30, 33, 32 years ago, 32 years ago. And, just because there was a major life change and it was time for me to shift gears a little bit. I didn't really know what I was doing when I did that actually, but that was my first experience of it. And since then, I've used the 7 step process every week every week since then, at least one time with something that I'm working on. It's such a great tool for pulling out what needs to come out and be looked at, to be um, forgiven, release, let go. You can find, I know this is an advertisement real quick. I don't get anything for this, but the 7 steps process is in Jane Hart's book, Spiritual Power Tools, Support for Your Soul. It's on the website, the Center for Enlightenment website also. That is, you can just look at it anytime, free of charge. The book you can order in physical form from Amazon. Um, but there's lots of good tools in there. The 7 steps is just one of them. Um, and we're going to be starting on the disappointments and difficulties step, even though in the original process, the gratitude step is first. But when we're releasing something that might be more challenging, like the year, we start on the disappointments and difficulties step just because it's often the first thing that's on our mind. When we come to the end of the year, I can't tell you how many years as a therapist, I have heard people say at the end of the year, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad this year is over. I just want to just move on to the next year already." And why is that? Because we compartmentalize our lives in years. And by the end of the year, we are feeling the heaviness of all the accumulated shoulda, coulda, wouldas, all the accumulated disappointments and difficulties, and all the accumulated to-do lists that never got done from this year. And this is our opportunity to put all of that on the table and let it go so that we're walking into the new year not carrying all of that emotional baggage. We can just say, okay, I forgive myself. I forgive all those people I feel like I need to forgive, even the ones I don't want to. I'm going to forgive them anyway and let them go and walk into the new year with a different perspective. When we walk into the year carrying all that stuff, then it's like right here in our new year, and we're blocked from the flow of the new year, the new energy that comes in at the end of the year, and we just see things. We see things so differently, and we don't want to do that. We want to have all of that cleared away, let go. I remember when I was a kid, I used to picture the end of the year, like I was in this dark cave. It always felt like a dark cave to me. And then in January, I always felt like this bright light, and I didn't understand it at the time. Now I understand it better. I was feeling that end of the year muck that gets accumulated, apparently even for kids. And the new year just seemed like this magical new opportunity. And, now I can picture that much differently and do something about it, not just feel it, but do something about it. And the seven steps is the way I do that. So we are just going to pull up my questions for the disappointments and difficulties. We have each step has a set of questions that go along to help our journaling process. And I'm going to read these questions. We're not going to hang out with them during our meditation time. We will have an actual meditation today, but I want to read these questions to you because these are the ones to journal during this week of releasing the year so that you are actively working this process in your own life and writing down all those disappointments and difficulties. And the journaling questions are just helpful to get that process going. You don't have to confine your writing to the questions, but they just are such a great jumpstart to letting go of what we're disappointed in and our difficulties from the year. So the questions are, what do you feel most disappointed about regarding this year? What is the most difficult thing you had to do this year? What decisions, attitudes, and beliefs do you have about the year? And how are these decisions affecting your life? So it's really a great deep dive into looking at, what is part of that muck that has accumulated throughout the year and that we're holding right now about this year. So 2025 is our subject matter as we're walking through these questions. I really love these questions too of the seven steps process because so many times they're asked in a way that if I had to just sit down and write my disappointments and difficulties, I might start in January and just kind of go down and list them. But the questions are guiding us to start with what we feel most disappointed about regarding the year. We start with the big thing and then whatever else follows is icing on the cake, so to speak. And what is the most difficult thing we had to do? So it's addressing our disappointments, our biggest disappointments and our biggest difficulties from the year, and looking at what decisions, attitudes, and beliefs do you have about the year? And even based on, here's my biggest disappointment from the year, here's the most challenging thing I had to do, the most difficult thing I had to do this year, and how am I looking at myself right now? How did I feel? What's my evaluation of how I did that? Did I give myself an A plus? Did I give myself a D minus? Did I give myself, like, how am I holding myself because of having walked through these disappointments and difficulties? Now, here's the thing about the seven steps. When I work on the seven steps, I don't have my notepad here, but I take a legal pad and I put the name of a step at the top of one page, and then I'll flip a couple pages, and then I'll put the name of the next step on the next two pages later, so that as I'm and so forth throughout all the seven steps, so that as I'm journaling, I can flip through and go, okay, well, I'm starting with disappointments and difficulties, but sometimes we go through challenges and it's a difficulty that we go through. Maybe it's our biggest difficulty from the year, but because we went through it, there's so much we feel grateful for. We have so much gratitude around, oh my gosh, that was really hard, but wow, I am not the same person because I was able to walk through that and make it to the other side of it. So some of our experiences from this year can go on a number of steps. Maybe our gratitude step, maybe our good time step. I don't know how that would work, but it happens. It happens. So, give yourself some space. Even though we're walking through these one by one, I invite you to, I believe I put in maybe I didn't put in the email, but I'll put it in the YouTube recording description. The the link to 7 steps for releasing the year questions all on one page. I will do that for us for the recording so that you can look ahead and see the other questions. Feel free to jump in. You don't have to wait for me. Jump in and just use those questions as a guide and go through and spend this month. Don't feel like you need to do it all at one time because you'll write a little and it'll stir things up inside, and then the next thing will come up a couple of days later. So, spend this whole month going through those questions and flipping back and forth from one step to another as things arise. One of the steps suggests looking through our photos. If you have you know, whole bunch of photos like I do in your phone, you can start from January 1st, 2025 and go through all your pictures to help remind you of what happened this year. Maybe some of those good times from the year remind you of something difficult you had to go through. So it's all interconnected, even though they are um, individual steps with an individual focus for each step. We try to cover all the bases through the steps and then we can jump around. So it doesn't have to be chronological. So, with that said, what we're going to do during our Monday morning meditation, I will talk about each part of the 7 steps that we're doing each week, and then we'll just do a little meditation each week. We're going to stir up these things. We're going to stir up those disappointments and difficulties. So it's not our normal Monday morning meditation where we want to ease out into our Zen zone. We're going to stir stuff up and just let it come up and out because that's how things heal. That's how we let it go, is it has to come up first. So our meditation time will just be looking at some of those disappointments and difficulties, asking the question, what's the most difficult thing I had to do this year? What is my biggest disappointment from this year? And we're just going to hang out with that a little bit just to let it come up and out. Not not for any other reason, but to release it and let it go. So, with that wonderful introduction to stirring the pot, I invite you to get comfortable in your chair. Take a couple of deep breaths. And I invite you to tap into how you see the year. What does the end of the year feel like to you? It's always interesting, the commotion of the holidays and gatherings and this, that, and the other thing that we have to do. But what we're doing is we're looking on the inside. What are we carrying from the year right now? And just holding these situations, people, whatever that come up, knowing that we're allowing this to come up to be released. So there's a flow to this, even though we're looking at challenging experiences. Perhaps you can look at it like a movie, a scene in a movie, that disappointment or difficulty that surfaces when you think of what is the most difficult thing you had to do this year. And just notice any thoughts, emotions, body sensations around that event, that situation, that person. Perhaps it's yourself that comes up as a part of the difficulty or disappointments. We're not going to live here. We're not going to pitch a tent in this memory. We're just noticing to be able to write it down later and really let it out. Such a beautiful opportunity to let these go, to honor ourselves by looking at them, not just sweeping them under the rug or pretending they didn't happen, or not understanding that if we're not releasing it, we're carrying it with us. And we just want to do that. So we embrace this challenge and opportunity to let these people, places, things, situations arise to the surface. To be released. I like to use the visualization of when these situations come up from this step, I let them be pulled out of me and I put them in a little basket with a labeled with a year. So they're outside of me, in front of me to acknowledge and release. And as we work with this process, we will be releasing, moving through those 7 steps and being able to release everything into that light of the universe, if you will, God, infinite love, whatever you call it. We'll be letting it all go. And perhaps we had goals as we came into this year back in January, goals we wanted to accomplish, situations we wanted to have in place by now. All of these go on our list in our baskets. Especially challenging can be some of those decisions, attitudes, and beliefs we have about ourselves. Disappointments. We're just going to gently bring those up as well. I read something this week that said life is made up of necessary mistakes that teach us and guide us. And ultimately, there's no reason to hold ourselves harshly for anything because we learn and we grow and we keep moving forward. So we want all those situations that we hold against ourselves to come up and out on this step. They really mean nothing once our lesson has been learned. And if we're still learning, there's no reason to hold ourselves harshly. We just say, okay, what else am I learning? This is a step where we release all that negativity that we carry within ourselves, about things that have happened that are now in the past. all this we'll get to let go. It's being acknowledged to be released. So as you work on this week with pen and paper or typing it into your computer or phone, I like pen and paper. There's just more physical release for me to do it that way. But however you choose to write these down, let there be a little bit of joy behind the emotions that these might bring up because you're doing this work to let it go, and that is a very joyful opportunity. It's like feeling good about cleaning out a closet or garage or desk drawer. It's like, oh, what a mess, but yay. It's going to be all cleaned up and back in order. So I invite you, if you have some time now, to just take some time to write what came up for you during this, and more things will come up, and that's just part of the process. So be prepared and just write it down and skip ahead to other steps if, as you're working with a disappointment or difficulty, that some gratitude comes from it. Um, our hope and dream, which is our what we'll be covering next week. A lot of our hopes and dreams from the year turn into disappointments and difficulties, as well as accomplishments that we made, which is down the road. And so feel free to skip around. And thank you for joining me. Thank you for being willing to do this work. It's going to be a good month of letting go, and we can really enjoy the holiday season as we're able to let go and go, oh my gosh, I get to let this go and start a new year fresh and with a new perspective on life. And it's beautiful. Please do check out Center for Enlightenment if you want to go deeper with that. They're wonderful classes on Sundays, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great week writing down those disappointments and difficulties. Bye bye.